everyone, welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. I am Bonnie Krebs, creator of Watercolor the Art Impressions Way, and this week we're going to start working our way through our newest releases. I love these new sets and I'm really looking forward to showing you how to put them together. So this week, the very first one, we're going to start out with the little bird bath set. And it comes with some really tiny birds. I released a set of birds not too long ago, and they were a little bit bigger. So these are really tiny. They're really great to use in the background, and I think they're really, really versatile. So we're going to use this set right here. We're going to use just a couple of these little birds, this one here and this one, and of course the bird bath. We're also going to use one of these branches from the branch set. I use these dried branches a lot, and I love this new set. It's really, really versatile. I'm going to show you lots of different ways to use these little branches, but we're going to start out with this one right here. And then we just need a couple more things. So in the new foliage, the flower set, we're going to use this one. And then in the foliage set, we're going to use the small grass and the vine. So we don't need a lot of other images with this one. Okay, so we're going to start out with this. We're going to put this little bird bath sort of in a little grassy glen right here, a little grassy area. I'm going to show you how to put this together. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start out by inking that little bird bath, and we're going to ink it in two colors. So we're going to use the number 86. That is the African violet. And we're just going to ink this all up. And then on top of that, we're going to ink the sepia. So sepia is the number 45. So that's the number 86 and the number 45. And it's going to give us a really sort of a cool gray look. So we're going to stamp this kind of in the middle of our paper, a little closer to the bottom, so we have lots of room. And we're just going to place it on there like so. All right, the next step would be to pull the color out of the lines, and that would be to use water and the brush and pinch it off. And we're going to just pull some of this color out from the sides. Just drag it out to the center. This is a rounded basin, so we want to be sure to show that highlight in the center. If we color this all in solid, it's going to be flat, and we don't want that. So just start out by pulling this color out. This is really just the starting point. We'll do some more to it later, but we're just going to start out by dragging this color out to the center. And again, you can see that I've dragged even down in this area where it's a little narrower, we're still doing the same thing. We're pulling that color to the center. Okay, that looks pretty good. That's about all we have to do right now with that. So let's go on to the next step, and that would be to add our grasses and our foliage into the background. So we're going to start out by using the little tiny grass. And we're going to just kind of create a little grassy arch back here, just a little bow. And if you want, you can use a pencil and draw this in if you're just a little unsure. You can always do that. But we're just going to make a little bend because we want this to look like it's in a little grassy area. Be sure to stamp that in there a bunch of times. Dip your brush, pinch it off, and then pull that color just up and out. So just like this. Okay, so we've got our little grassy border in here. So let's go on to the next step. And I cut up a mask. So I stamped a mask. I stamped the image onto a Post-it note, and I'm just going to cover this little bird bath. I want to stamp my flowers back in here, and I don't want to encroach over the top of the image. So I'm just going to cover it up like that. It doesn't have to be cut perfectly because we just really need this area right in here. Okay, so let's ink that stamp that we're going to use in the background. And we're going to start with the lightest color, and that would be the yellow. So this is a number 43 yellow. I've cleaned this off really well to make sure that I don't get a muddied color. And I'm using two colors on here. So I'm using the number 15 green and the number 43 yellow. And I'm just stamping this in here a couple of times. So just like that. I'm going to clean that off now. And I've got a little baby wipe here. So I'm going to clean this off. I usually just use my thumb, and you can do that too. But I want to make sure I don't have any residual color on here. So I want to make sure that's really clean. I'm going to ink it now with the Prussian Blue. So that's the number 29. And the number 15 again. So I'm kind of repeating that same step. only just a different color. And I'm going to do the same thing in here and just get it in here a couple of times. I'm going to clean it off again. So just clean it off with a baby wipe, or just use your thumb. And we're going to ink it one more time now, and that would be with the magenta. So this is number 20, magenta. And again, the number 15. So down in here. And we're going to do that one more time. So just like that. And we've got this all in here. We can remove this little mask now because we're just going to add the water to this. So dip your brush, pinch it off, start with the lightest color. Again, we don't want to muddy this yellow. Yellow is the only color we really have to be careful with. We don't get a mix of color in there. I'll go on now to the stems, so the grassy area. And now we can go into the blue, and I'm just jumping my brush around, so I'm just dabbing. These flowers are in the background, so they don't have to be big. They're just small, so the idea of the flowers. And then just go on to the pink and just kind of dab. Don't be afraid to go outside of the lines. So you've got color onto your brush. You can just keep dabbing. Okay, so we've got our little flowers in the background, so cute. And let's go on to the next step. And let's add some grasses now into the front. So we're using that same 72. This is the color that I used when I first put this grass in. So 72 is pine green. And we can put a little bit on our palette as well. So we're going to pull this color up and out now. And take a little bit of this color and just kind of put a little line back in here. You can drag some of this color down too. Remember, it's just the idea of things, so you don't have to color the area completely in solid. That's probably good enough right there. Okay, let's go on to the next step, and that would be to add some water into our bird bath, and we're going to use the number 29 Prussian Blue. So I'm going to use that really bright blue color. We're going to just take a little bit of this. Make sure your brush isn't too wet because it's a small area to color in. And just keep that color inside the lines. We don't want to muddy it up too much by dragging in this color from the other lines. So we want to just be careful to just get that blue in there. And we'll go back to that. We're going to add a little more of this blue onto the bird bath as well. But like I said, we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so let's go on to the next step, and that would be to add our little branch in at the top. And we're going to use that branch from the dried branch set. So this long one right here. And I'm going to ink this with the sepia. So I'm just going to ink this whole thing up. And I only need to stamp it one time. So just kind of drop it right over the top of the little bird bath. So just like that. We don't need to show the whole tree. This is just the idea of the tree. So we've got a little tree branch coming out over the top of the bird bath. It's just the idea of it. So don't worry about this area back in here. So now we're going to add some foliage to that branch, and we're going to use two colors. So we're going to use the pine green. We're going to ink it with that first. And then we're going to use the olive green right on top. So we're going to get a little mix of color here. And we're just going to kind of extend that branch with the foliage. So let's ink it one more time. Olive green and pine green. And let's put a little bit more down in here so we can see that, that tree. And that's really about all we have to do. We can come in and add a little bit more of this if we want to later. So if you feel like, oh, I don't have enough foliage in here, I want to add a little bit more, you can do that after. It's better not to overdo it to start. So dab. So we're just softening these lines that we just stamped. Just softening them all up. You really don't have to do much to the branch. You can add a little bit of color to it, but when you add the water to the foliage, you're going to get some blend of color on that anyway. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and add some sky in here. And that would be using that Prussian blue. So we want this to be very light. And just go ahead and brush a little of this color in. We're going to put a little bird here and a little bird up here. So don't overdo it with the color in those areas. Just kind of keep that away from some of this darker color, especially the sepia. You don't want to blend this into the sepia. Less is more when it comes to the sky. Don't want to overdo this. Remember, it's just the idea of things. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead now and put our little birds in. And we're going to use the positioner because we want to make sure we get them in the right place. And this is the way to make sure that they are not floating off in space somewhere. Okay, let's start with this little guy that's going to be up in the tree. We're going to ink him in the sepia. And I'm going to stamp it off because I don't want this too dark. These are really tiny little lines. And so I'm going to stamp that off and make sure I don't have it too dark. And I'm going to stamp it onto my little shield. And I'm going to place him right here. So right here on the branch. Place my positioner back in place. And re-ink this little bird. And again, I'm going to stamp it off because I don't want him too dark. And then place him right in here just like that. That's perfect. Now I'm going to come back in with a fine tip of my sepia and I'm going to darken this little eye. Just carefully do this because that's so important that you get those little details on there. And it's really hard for that to show when you're stamping on this textured paper. So you want to always go back in and do that. Let's go ahead and position the other one and then we'll add color to both of them. So now here's the other little one. We're going to do those same steps. So we're going to ink him up, stamp it off, and then use our little plastic shield. We can use a different corner this time. Stamp it right in here. And I can see that that's a really good spot right here. I'm going to just put him right in here. Actually, maybe I'll move him over a little bit. He's a little crowded in this branch, so I think I'm going to move him over just like this. I'm going to ink it again. And stamp it off. And place him right here to make sure that he's in the correct spot. Okay, so let's go ahead and repeat that step again. And that is to put that little eye in. Make sure that beak is dark, his little feet. And then let's do the next step, and that would be to pull the color out of the line. So really pinch your brush off. Your brush should be very, very dry. You're just blending, pulling a little of this color out, just a tiny bit. And we're gonna go back in and we're gonna take some of this number 29, so this Prussian blue, just a tiny little bit. And we're going to add some color now to these little birds. And again, you don't want to cross the lines. Even though the images are tiny, it really makes a difference that you do it this way. Let's put a little bit down in here. I keep pinching my brush off and it will just get lighter and lighter. Just be patient and take your time. It's worth it to just do this in stages so you don't get too much on here. These are tiny, tiny little lines. They're so cute. Okay, so we've got our little guys in here. Let's just put a little shadow on him. Like so. And we're going to take a little bit of this color now, just a little bit, and we're going to brush it onto the side. This is still the Prussian blue. We're going to brush it onto the sides so that we can see a little shadow effect here. Same over on this side. This is really optional. You really don't even need to do this step. This is just kind of up to you. I always like to add a little more color. It just kind of gives you more dimension. When you look at things, you know, even things that are white, when you look at them off in the distance, they still have a lot of color on them. Shadows and different highlights. So just take your time and just drag in a little bit of color just like this. You could also take a tiny bit of this color and just put a little detail in. Something a little decorative. And just keep working your way over this. Put that dark line in, just keep going. My brush is really, really dry right now. Okay, we are about finished with this little painting. So fun and easy. Love these little birds. So there's only one thing left to do, and that would be to sign and date. So let's do that. And be sure to put it in a frame or put it on a card and give it to someone that you care about. You will make their day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're going to love all these new projects. These are all new for 2017, so we're going to have a really fun time in the next few weeks. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and I will see you all next week.